Hello, and welcome to the How Long to Beat podcast. Third time is the charm. We know that, you don't, now you do. Amazing. I am Rick. As always, I'm joined by Alex and Paula. And it's going to be a disjointed episode on the whole, not just because of my abortion of an intro. Earlier this week, we spent 3/4 of an hour talking with the wonderful Keith Webb about his career in games, Kokopolo, and everything in between. So you're going to hear that later on. We're going to splice that in the middle. Before that, we've got an update on the Fantasy Critic League. Another month has gone by. More games have come out and more points have been awarded. And then, as always, we're going to talk about what we've beaten, played, retired, not necessarily in that order. And we'll finish off with everybody's favourite diversion.
How long to beat the game.
And without further ado, before we get in, lead us in, Alex.
Yeah, this is it. It's time now for that Fantasy Critic League segment. And I'm just saying, I'm still leading. Anyway, tell them all about it, Abatage.
What's up, everybody? I'm Abatage, and welcome to your How Long to Beat Fantasy Critic League roundup for May 2021. There was a little shuffling about on the leaderboard last month, with a few first-time point scorers entering the mix, leaving Ashmasters as the only publisher still waiting on their first release of the year. So let's look at the current standings. Funky Face Studios, Ubisoft, General Goods and Horny Mistress maintain their positions in the top 4 spots, with General Goods having the only release in the group for May, with the long-awaited but critically disappointing release of Biomutant. Frozen Frog jumped up a couple of spots thanks to the release of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne's HD Remaster, which added 9 points to their total. Beatmasters entered 6th place with their first points on the board thanks to Resident Evil Village showing up strong and scoring 14 points for its publisher. Noise Labs, Cockroach Content Corp and CD Projekt Rick all had no releases in May, but were bumped down a couple of spots by those previous successes. Poke and Paw also received their first points of the year, although Famicom Detective Club, The Girl Who Stands Behind, only managed 5 points, which was thankfully still enough to put them on the board. A silver lining for CD Product Refund thanks to the release of Mass Effect Legendary Edition that scored a solid 17 points and pulled this publisher out of the depths. Finally, Mango is still feeling the pain from Balan Wonderworld as they remain at the bottom of the pack, even after the release of Famicom Detective Club The Missing Heir, which added 5 points to their total. Only a few publishers added to their roster during May, so let's have a look at who made some changes. Mango successfully acquired Scarlet Nexus for $1 and Shovel Knight Dig for $1, leaving them with $69 left in their budget. General Goods successfully acquired Age of Empires 4 for $5, which I incorrectly included in last month's roundup, but it was actually acquired during May, and left them with $80 left in their budget. And Ubisoft successfully outbid Mango and acquired Lost Judgment for $50, filling their roster and leaving them with $39 left in their budget. So that's how the How Long to Beat Fantasy Critic League shaped up for May 2021. There are currently 9 titles awaiting release in June, which means there's a lot of potential for leaderboard changes and surprising sleeper hits to creep in, as well as Ashmasters getting their first release and first points on the board. Plus, we're heading into that later half of the year where many picked games have only estimated release dates, leaving a big question mark over what will actually be completed. Good luck to everyone who has releases in June, and let's hope for some exciting announcements along the way. Back to the podcast.
That sounded so good. And it's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still just trying to gloat for as long as I can, because if things do go topsy-turvy once all the E3 stuff comes out and people pick up a bunch of great games, at least for about 5 months of the year, I've been leading the Fantasy Critic League.
Listeners don't even need to hear the update. They'll know how it's going depending on how you lead it in. It's going to come to September. It's like, all right, here's your fucking update.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. In a month or two, I'll be like...
fucking Pokemon Diamond remake 35%. For fuck's sake. And speaking of Pokemon, segue, I this week have beaten my first and probably last ever Pokemon game, mainline. I had a lot of preconceptions going into Pokemon Soul Silver, which is the game that I completed. Unfortunately, most of them were confirmed. And this is sort of the thing. there is a charm. There is an undeniable charm to Pokemon at its core when everything comes together. The problem is that it feels like it actively wants you not to get to the good bits. The computer is just laborious to go through. The HM system can go die in a ditch. There's so many little niggly delays and slowdowns and obfuscations. I just couldn't get into it. And it got a slightly generous 7. There were parts where I did enjoy myself. And I can fully understand, and we've said this before, and this is another thing that I feel like, having finally taken the time to play one of these things, it's been confirmed that I can totally see where if you were a child that grew up with it, like you did, Alex, and I know you did, Paula, those things don't really matter because you have infinite time. You don't give a fuck. You're just enjoying catching Pokemon. The other wrinkle is I played Shin Megami Tensei first, and Shin Megami Tensei just straight up did it first, did it better in terms of collecting all the creatures. The fusion system, negotiation's way more fun than throwing a ball at them and hoping that the RNG fall in your favor. It's so stupid.
To be fair, Megami Tensei 4, those negotiate, at least that's the one I remember playing like the most. Those negotiate, oh my god, I can't speak today. Negotiating with a demon in that game.
When you talk to them.
They're pretty random.
Talking to the demons can be like hard. Like sometimes it's just pretty arbitrary what they want to say or not, or it's just a roll of dice.
But you feel like you have some agency.
Yeah, you have some agency on that, and it's actually like pretty fun because each demon has like a lot of sequence of dialogue, and they showcase some of their personality, unlike Pokemon.
Yeah, see what you missed, Rick, is you missed out on being a child and pressing the A button because you thought that was going to help you catch the Pokemon. That was the agency. You were like, come on,
memories.
come on, come on.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, there's a childlike wonder to it where you would get bundled into that, and those things just would melt away and wouldn't matter. I came to it late. I came to it having played better. I came with it with having less time and knowing what the pain points were going to be. Honestly, if it weren't for the fact that I'd sort of come in and thought, I want to finish a Pokemon game so I can at least know whether I've been talking out my ass for 15 years or whether I actually had a point in what I thought about them. Because there's a massive part in the middle, maybe between gym number 2 and gym number 7, where I just could not give a fuck. I was really bored. That's the point where I fell off about 9 months ago. So I can't remember whether I talked about it the very first episode when we came back. I had Soul Silver and Bravely Default on the go. Bravely Default, the combat is just a million times better.
Yeah.
So I put Soul Silver down to focus on that. And I'd put it down at a time when it was just really not connecting to me. And I've just been putting it off to go back to. So I had to get a guide so I at least knew where I was going and in what order to force myself to get back into it. But once you've got a team that's relatively well put together, the fun comes again. But then you've got to slog all the way to the Elite Four. It's like a load of boring battles that are under-leveled. This is another thing, just before I finish off, because I've more or less covered everything I wanted to say. The battles in the field are way too easy, and consequently, most of the Pokemon you get are under-leveled. The bosses, up until like the last gym, and then the Elite Four, I beat them first time, it was actually kind of a cakewalk, are like over-leveled. And even with a type advantage, there's an expectation of grinding. And the grinding's no good in this because you only get the experience, and I've had this argument with a couple of people. No XP share across the party is bollocks. Because all it means is, I'm going to spend my first turn swapping the Pokemon out so I at least get a modicum of XP share. That's not good design. That's a bollocks workaround. And I can't believe that it's something that's been put up with for so long.
Well,
so,
it wasn't put up for that long, to be honest, because they added the XP share in like pretty quickly after that.
And then like, people cried about it.
True.
I know, but this is okay. You're delving like even like a little foot into the issue with Pokemon. So like, do you know what I mean? This is the problem, man. Like, there's a lot of shit that you would think would just be like smart design, and then it's like you put it in, they go, "Fuck you! I liked that thing." It's like, wow.
Here's my hot take: it should be a slider, like permadeath on the newer Fire Emblems.
Player
choice.
I see. That's
Player
a good
choice
idea.
is king. I'm full of them. This is it.
Yeah,
like
sorry, go on.
because you said like there's like a very wide jump of levels between, I think it is between the Elite Four and then like going through the quote unquote post game stuff, especially when you go to the final boss of the game. That level jump is stupid.
Oh yeah, the final
Do you
boss
mean
is
Lance?
huge.
Like between 4 and
No, no.
5?
No.
You didn't beat the game entirely. There's a part that you
Oh
missed.
no! I fully recognise that, like the
Yeah.
post credits, like the other part of the game, there was zero chance of me like
Oh, I know. Yeah.
going within 3 feet of that. It
Oh,
just
then
wasn't
I
gonna
can
happen.
talk about it.
You can say whatever you want. I'm never gonna play it. I'm selling my copy of Soul Silver. I'm not keeping it.
Really?
Okay,
200
so in the second part of the game, you
Exactly.
go through Kanto,
Mhm.
and you beat like all 8 team leaders, and the final
Right,
boss
okay.
is Red.
Oh, from the first game. Okay.
He
Yeah.
has a level 88 Pikachu.
Yeah, he's very
And is this the
strong.
battle that you were cheesing with Metronome when you completed it a couple of weeks ago?
I didn't cheese with metronome, but
How
I
did you
did
cheese it, rather?
cheese using level 80 Togekis, I think.
Level 80 was cheesing. Goodness gracious me.
Listen,
Yeah, so my party finished with like a level 47 Lugia and level 44 Typhlosions and Gyarados. There was no way I was going to level 88. It just wasn't happening.
honestly,
You don't really need to go like that high in levels to beat the game, but it is advisable you have at least like one really high level member on your party, because otherwise you're gonna get demolished. Since I got a Togekiss that is a tank that had like a really high special attack. Some of my team members had like good coverage and a lot of HP or defense to go with, like to support the Togekiss.
Mhm.
What Togekiss did was survive the attacks the other team members couldn't survive, use Asian power, get that boost for all the stats, and then demolish the Red's team. But that final battle is like a 20 level jump, if I remember correctly, from the previous like trainer you have to battle.
Yeah, fuck that. That's
It's kind of disgusting. The thing is that adding like the experience tier, the way they did it in the later games, it broke. The game broke. Like
it makes it way too easy, I've been told.
the games
Yeah.
were always broken. The idea that these games were ever not broken is a friggin' joke. I mean, the first game is notoriously broken, and they all are, and that's fine. Like, I kind of love that. The fact that it is fine, because when I was a kid, I was a dumb child, so I just fucking leveled the shit up out of my Blastoise, and I beat the entire game. You know what I mean? Like in the first one, and then I kind of did the same in the second. You know, and then like when you get older, you're like, oh, I could actually share this around, and I could play this better. You know, and like. In some ways, I do think it has a lot of choice. But something that's interesting, Rick, is that, and I think it's just your critiques are actually similar to the critiques I'm going to levy at a game that I beat this week. In the sense that if you played this when it sort of came out, like especially Crystal, because this is really what Soul Silver is basically Crystal, right? Like it takes all those updates and added. That
In the base game with the whole remake and everything else, yeah. Sorry, go
yeah,
on.
that game was basically it was basically like an MMO essentially. Like you weren't actually playing online with everybody, but it had all these timed things that you were supposed to do. So the idea is that you're supposed to check in on the game, and it was like something that you would do all the time. And I actually did this a lot. Like it was like I didn't often play Crystal in huge long bursts. I would actually play it at various times throughout the day and various times throughout the week. I'd be like, oh, it's time to go check in and get my thing and do this and do that. And so anyway, it's just kind of neat in that way. But it doesn't work now, right? Like, come on, who's got time for that shit? You know what I mean?
Not me.
Well, exactly, right? Like these days, there's just no time for it. But I don't know. Anyway, what else have you beaten? That's enough beating the dead Pikachu. Let's move on.
That's a title contender right there. So I've got 2 other completions. The first one is an interesting one. So since I sorted out all the Vita hacks, once I'd like safely finished Psychedelica and I could try and do the SD to Vita setup again, which I've done. I downloaded a load of homebrews, and one of them is The Pathway. So it's like a fan-made one-to-one recreation of PT, and it's quite fun because it's stylized TP on the home bubble on the Vita for the PT comparison. It's just really cool that teaser game, as it were, has got legs and is being preserved. And despite having like watched multiple playthroughs when the thing first came out, the remake still managed to give me a fucking jump scare, because there's one of the loops around the corridor. There's a bit where the bathroom door won't open, but you can hear noises, and when you stand next to it for a few seconds, creature open a crack and then a creature comes out, and I almost threw my Vita over my shoulder. It was really good. So anyone who's got access to Vita homebrews, go and check that out. That's great. And then I played a classic that I had a much better time with, which was this month's game of the month, Super Metroid. It's an interesting one because I went into it worried that it would be another Super Mario World or another, foreshadowing for the game that you've beaten this week, Alex. It actually holds up remarkably well, mostly. There's an underwater biome called Meridia, which is trash tier. It just really isn't any fun at all. Yeah. And it brought the game down a whole point, that sort of 45-minute segment that I was in that area. There's also like various quality of life things that other games have iterated on that it suffers for not having, mainly in terms of the map, but also in the way that it sort of tutorializes a few things. People sort of wank themselves off over the little creatures that show you how to wall jump, but they don't really show you how to wall jump. They show you that you can wall jump. It's only like through stumbling on a random forum post that someone like clocked me onto the fact that you have to press the direction just slightly before you press the jump button for the wall jump to reliably trigger. And that's bad tutorializing because it hasn't told you anything. It's just left you in a situation like, I know I can do this. Why isn't it working? So
there was a period in game design where no one knew how to do a fucking wall jump, and it was a nightmare. The person who invented let the character sit on the wall for a second and then jump is a saint. Because until then, it was just, okay, tap the button real good. There's no feedback, but hopefully it works. I'm like...
And this, just as a minor diversion, because you make a really interesting point, and this is something that we actually talk about very briefly in the discussion later with Keith, how sort of everything gets homogenized in terms of what are the classics and what falls through the cracks. And I feel like so much of the time, these problems are solved by people in those cracks. Because if people are just like, oh yeah, Metroid's the template, maybe we don't get good wall jumps in the future because whoever fixed it just got no sunlight acknowledgement, and that solution to a problem is never promulgated is the word that I was looking for before I said spread. But yeah, it's the game holds up ultimately. It's a weird one because I've played loads of Metroidvanias. I've played all the other 2D Metroids apart from this coming to it. So it's actually a testament to the game itself that in spite of those handicaps, I suppose, I still left with a really, really strong impression of the game. Amazing world design as well for a 2D game that's that old. It really builds a good atmosphere. I had headphones on because I'd heard good things about the audio design as well, and that was absolutely a good decision. So I had a blast with that, and anyone who's thinking about participating in the game of the month this month, absolutely do it because it's a good month to be playing it. So that's everything from me. If I can sort of take us over to you, Paula, next, because I've seen that you've played two of Cecile Richards' backlog spectaculars.
Yay! Hope and Topography. Those were like fantastic games. I think Topography being like a little bit designed like after Tumblr didn't quite land with me, but the overall theme still like was pretty close to home in some aspects. Hope, I think, is probably my favorite from the Cecilia Richards so far. Maybe because of how close to home it hit and how well I think it represented the theme it was trying to convey. So yeah, that is like totally recommended from my part. Like, go play it. It's 5 minutes. Go do the thing.
And
in a
Hope
less
especially
positive.
sorry, go on.
No, go on.
I was just going to say Hope especially, because I clipped that one quite well as well. It's set to like a proper song by a proper band, and their music's really good as well. So yeah, another reason to go and check that one out.
In a less positive oh my god, I can't speak today.
That's the effect that Diabolik Lovers has had upon you.
Yeah. I have thoughts on this game. Like, this game was like one of the top most wanted for an English localization, to the point it was a meme. Because everyone asked for it, like on those like interview thingies or like Google form thingies, like the companies like put out, like which games to localize next. Everyone knows that it's not gonna get localized, or the chances are like really slim, especially because of the topics conveyed on the game, and it's also like one of the niche automated titles in terms of like the size of the audience is targeting, because there's a certain archetype of a character. It is usually like known as Yandere. You can say it's like a more sadistic character. You could say like one way or another, all 6 of the characters presented as of interest for Yui, the protagonist, are Yandere. Paula does not like that archetype. Paula did not have a good time most of the time.
Paula is dissociating and talking in the third person to distance herself from those negative emotions.
Paula mad.
Paula smash.
Okay, so first of all, even though I didn't not like it enough to drop it entirely, at the very least, I wanted to give it a fair chance because of how a lot of people seem to like the game from the Otome import community. And also, since it was like this mythical beast that everyone was talking about, yet nobody that didn't speak Japanese could get to. And I saw there was like this fun English translation over here. I bit the bullet, tried it, went through all 6 routes, got the main ending for each character, plus the epilogue. Story-wise, it is a mess because there's like so many things it sets up, and it could have been like really well executed. It would have been like a very good a very good story if it was well executed, which it wasn't. The characters, 3 of them, deserve to rot in the darkest hell imaginable because of the things they do to the poor protagonist. This isn't like BDS. Oh, BDS. I think it is
BDSM, yeah.
Yeah, this is fucking abuse. There's a limit. I tend to tolerate some of the harsher characters on some of the Otome games, but one of them, in Diabolik Lover especially, hit the limit, and now I was like, okay, I finished his route, fuck him, I don't want to know anything more about this character. Sorry, this game made me mad in so many instances, and the worst thing is that nearing the end of the game, like when I was like done with the first 3 routes of the game, I actually started enjoying like a lot more of the scenes. One of the characters was still like cheaty, and I didn't like him because, and this is like really weird because he seems to be like one of the favorites, but the way he talked, oh, sometimes it made me imagine like these like perverted old man, and I was like, ew, get the fuck out of here. So Paula didn't have a good time in that route. Like, even if the writers wanted like to make the character appear like, oh, he's learning and he's like acting like a lot more, I don't know, like he's changing for the better or anything. I didn't care about the character enough to even like care about the changing for the good stuff. One of the other characters that was like the last route I played, it was Subaru, was better written, but it was really rushed. So the change of heart he had was like from one chapter to the next, instead of like this gradual thing that would have been better. And my favorite route, Reggie, it was for a very stupid reason, because like this character actually has rules in place. Like this is like the one character that is like, these 5 fuckers are like bringing disgrace to the family. I'm gonna like be the actually one person in this household that is like at least going to behave like in public spaces and stuff like that. Not only that, but I think I mentioned this earlier, but the reason Yui was brought to this mansion was to be like this sacrificial maiden to decide like who of the 6 brothers was supposed like to inherit like the castle, because they were like vampire royalty or something.
As one is.
As one is.
That old trope.
That old trope. Oh my god, like I don't know where to begin with this one, but like the so these 6 vampires, like the way vampires are handled here is that they're more like, I guess how they do like demons in Japanese mythology, that are like they are born that way, but you can like turn into a vampire by certain conditions. So these vampires were born vampires. They're still immortal. They still suck blood. They are nocturnal, but don't necessarily like die with sunlight. They're weak to silver. And I'm trying to see if I'm forgetting something. They have familiars, which only one of them really uses. I was like, what's the point of giving them powers if they're not using the powers? And some of them can fly, do mind control stuff, and their powers like intensify like in a full moon and shit like that.
Okay, so just throw some random werewolf magic in there.
Yeah, and Dewey, on the other hand, and this is like the one thing I was like, I want to know more about Dewey, because like her father, who sent her to this vampire-filled mansion, isn't even her father. It's her adoptive father. And Dewey, I don't know if she was abandoned, if she was born dead or whatever, but some stupid vampire thought it was like the perfect vessel to bury this like vampire's heart on, and like pretty much like be the vessel for this other vampire spirit or some convoluted thing like that. Which, by the way, only went somewhere like in half of the route. But thanks to this vampire heart like you grew up with, she's like the one sacrificial maiden who actually goes through awakening without losing herself. Because it seems like when a human turns into a vampire, things can go really bad for the human. Like, the human may not actually turn into a vampire and may die instead. So there were like these rules more or less in place, and the game ignores them like half of the time. So I'm like, even like, why even bother placing them in the first place? Because, for example, the vampire, like the way it works is like if the heart is like intact, it seems like the vampire is not like fully dead or some shit like that. So Cordelia, who was the owner of that heart, started like manifesting inside Yui and taking over her body on some of the routes. I don't know like what makes it like happen, because there was like one route when it went like full possession, and like the objective of the route was like pretty much like trying to recover Yui and like getting rid of the possession, which it was like the one route I actually enjoyed because something was actually happening, and the love interest of the route wasn't like the one harming Yui. It was the one trying to save her. And I don't even want to get started in the family tree of this vampire because
there's more.
There's more.
I'll be really honest with you here. I'm not following most of this.
Don't worry, I wasn't following most of it. Like, I had to take notes because it was like, okay, so Ayato, this one and this one are supposed to be like from the same mother. These other two are from the same mother, and this last one is like from another mother. Okay.
I feel like this is an indictment in itself because this is your wheelhouse, and you're just like, I don't know what's happening here. I can't make sense of this.
Yeah. So yeah, like I still enjoyed part of the game for what it was. I did my best to like keep an open mind, but there were like times where it wasn't clicking with me. Other parts were like, okay, this is not for me. But I can see like the appeal for some people. Actually, the game is really pretty. The voice actors generally are good. Like the one that stuck out like a sore thumb was Ayato's voice actor, because I don't know, he seemed weird. Like half of the time, the others were like spot on every line, and Ayato was like the weird one out. And the music, it was pretty good. It even has like a remix of Scarborough Fair, and it is one of the most beautiful, calming versions of that song that I've ever heard, and I've heard a bunch. Still, the writing leaves a lot to be desired at some points. It doesn't have like cohesion between the routes. It doesn't have like an overarching plot that resolves like with one specific route, like let's say Color Cross Malice or Caza Enchante or Pio Fiore or Code Realized, that had like this route that is considered like the canon route that ties everything together with a little bow. this game doesn't have that. So when I finished the 6th route, I was like, now what? Now what? I finished the game, but it doesn't feel like I finished the game. So yeah, like, the only people I would recommend this game to is like a specific type of Otome player. Like, if you like Otome games, well, by no means play this. By no means this should be like your first Otome game, because it will scare the shit out of it. But if you are a seasoned Otome player, you want to play more, you want to see what the Japanese have, only play this one if you like characters such as Yang from Pio Fiore, Sang from Code Realized, Toma from Amnesia Memories, or what was his name? Lettuce Head, Saber Lettuce, the one from Color
You're the
Prismatis,
wrong
green
people
hair.
if you're trying to get us to help you here. Like, I don't know what
Sorry, I had to. Sorry, I actually forgot his name. Okay, dear listener, if you like any of those characters and you like vampire romance and shit like that, go for it. Otherwise, skip it. There's so much more stuff you could be playing out there, even like in the indie scene of Otome. So yeah, that's my sandstorm for Diabolik lovers.
Wow, me and Paula have both had our rants. Alex, why don't you finish at the
God.
triumvirate?
All right, yeah. So I beat one game this week, which was kind of like a throwback. So I beat Earthbound on the SNES because I connected my SNES Mini and, I hacked it. And I've got all these SNES games on it. And Earthbound, I had gotten about 3/4 of the way through that game. And that stupid save file was like staring me in the face. And I just read the boss fight books on Earthbound, which was okay. It's not my favorite of the boss fight books that I've read thus far, but it was more just like a guy kind of like recollecting on Earthbound as he was like playing through it as an adult again. Anyway, but all that aside, this game doesn't hold up in the slightest. And like I feel bad talking about this because this game is really, really special to a lot of people, and I can see why. I feel like if you played this game on the SNES when it came out, this game would have probably been just incredible because it's really different, right? Like it's, it's quirky. It's not, a bunch of big heroes going to save the world. It's kids who are going off and like they're on an adventure to save the world. And they get sad and they get up, they get homesick and they're also not very good at it sometimes. And you also have to go through weird existential moments throughout it. And the problem is that I now live in a world where every motherfucking indie developer who makes an RPG played that game and has made all their games quirky. And I just, it doesn't feel novel anymore, And I've said this before, and like, oh my God, here's the cliche. I'm going to mention Undertale when talking about Earthbound. But like, it's just that for this generation now, and I realize that Undertale has maybe already become what Earthbound is. Like, Undertale replaced Earthbound in the sense that it was this fun, quirky, interesting thing. But now I think when people go to play Undertale, they're like, whatever, man. It's not that, you know what I mean? Like, it's already hit that thing where people are like, oh, it's overrated. And I'm sure it'll have a renaissance when, people who were young who played Undertale at the time, when they become older, they'll be obsessed with it again too, like people were with Earthbound. But I don't know. I wanted to love this game a lot, but God, it was a goddamn slog near the end. Like, holy shit. The inventory management. Look, we have a whole fucking episode titled I'm Not Here to Sort Inventory. And that's what this game is. Like, Jesus, there is so much inventory to sort. And it's terrible. And it's not fun. It's just not a fun game. Like, it genuinely isn't fun, Like, I going through it and like, the turn-based combat is not enjoyable. It's just not. Like, there's all these oh God. I'm getting PTSD just thinking about it, and I only beat it like a few days ago.
This is making me really sad, because this is one that I feel like I'm exactly where you probably were at the start of this, where I want to love it, and I feel like there's a lot to love in there. But you're making me very worried to go and play it. I'm not really
getting worried too.
Here's what I suggest. I genuinely suggest, because I had to, so I dropped it for so long that when I booted it up, I went, where the fuck am I? So I had to get a Let's Play going and like watch where the dude was before it. And I was like, okay, oh, that's the quest I'm on. Okay. And then I was like, now you know what I mean? I kind of get it. And I certainly looked at a guide through a number of sections because there's some hard parts here. And I just, I think you should just watch this.
I was about to say exactly that. I'm wondering if I can just find a Let's Play and like watch it at double speed or something like that, and get the bits that you need to get without having to suffer through the anachronistic gameplay.
Yeah,
as counterintuitive as that sounds, but I feel like we're probably on the same page there.
Well, and because also the reality is that there are I found this one, and I actually think I'm going to watch the rest of it because I watched a couple of his videos and he's like commenting over it, which I know some people don't like, but he knows a lot about Earthbound, and it's like I actually think it's better that way because it's a chance for me to see why the game is important to people, right? Like I read the Earthbound
like a director's
book.
commentary side of thing, yeah,
and a commentary from someone who had played it when they're young, and in that sense, I understood why this game was so important to people, and it made me respect the game more, and it made me happier about the game and interested in it, and I still think it's worth experiencing. I don't think it is worth experiencing as a game anymore. I just don't really think it's worth that because it's long. It took me a long time to get through this, and it felt longer than it was.
How long does it take to beat? Let's find out.
It's about 20-something hours. I think. What did I?
That's what I was going for. There you go.
What was my time? I think my time was 26 hours.
Yeah, that is, especially if the game drags like that, because I didn't talk about it in terms of Pokemon. Pokemon took me 33 hours, and it felt every single minute of it. And it sounds like that's
28
kind
hours
of what
for me.
you're
It was
saying.
28:35 at least on the SNES Mini thing. Yeah, god damn, it was slow fucking going, man. I had some podcasts going, and I was like, holy shit. And clever writing and all that, and good stuff, and I appreciate what it has done for video games. Put it that way. It's very much, it's like watching an old movie. It's like watching Citizen Kane and being like, although I actually think Citizen Kane holds up. Anyway, maybe that's...
You can say that. I mean, but this is a quirk of the medium.
Yeah.
Watching a movie as a fundamental experience doesn't really change.
Yeah.
But because you as a player have input and involvement in every stage of the game, the anachronisms really do fundamentally change your experience depending on when you come to it. It's just yet another case for the argument that games aren't movies and we shouldn't treat them as such.
Yeah, honestly, it just made me
unless
sad.
Unless they don't play very well anymore, in which case please do treat them like a movie.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. I don't know, it just I just felt sad. Do you know what I mean? When I beat it, I was just sad. I was like, I wish I liked this more. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where all the pieces were there for me to like it, and I just didn't. And I don't know, unless you played this when you were younger, I just doubt it'll click with you that much. I don't think I've actually met anyone who played Earthbound as an adult who raves about it. I just haven't.
I mean,
anyone I ever talked to is like, yeah,
But Mother 3 I've heard excellent things about, and that's
Yes.
another one I'm really looking forward to come to.
I am going to play
Especially
Mother 3, yeah.
With it being on the GBA, which is one of the best systems.
Localized Mother 3. All right, I got that out of the way.
That's never happening.
Yeah. Anyway, let's put that one to bed.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of segues, in terms of games that have aged horrifically, why don't you tell us about the retirement of ZZT?
Yeah, so look, I was never going to beat ZZT, but
Okay.
I had fun with it. Again, I was from the books I was reading. It wasn't going to happen, but really interesting and neat. There's actually tons of different parts to it. There are a lot of fan ones you can play. I don't have much to say. Nothing more than what I said last week. Just check it out because it's neat. I also retired Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse for the SNES. This isn't actually bad. I just didn't vibe with the platforming control style. So it's a platformer, and you control Mickey Mouse. It's kind of weird. You get 3 costumes in it. The first one is how games did that the turban as the magic thing, and
I do now. I'm also just thinking of Paula when she shawled up 5 minutes ago.
Paula's put on a blanket and stuff. Yeah,
this is going to mean nothing for the people that are listening. But while Alex was getting all sad over Earthbound, at the time of recording, it's 11 p.m. for Paula. Maybe it's getting a bit chilly. It's 25 degrees here in the UK, so I cannot relate. But out of nowhere, this blanket just goes and shawls around her head, and she's all snuggled up like a bug in a rug.
She looks very cozy.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. That diversion aside, turban magic user.
Yeah, it's like the Aladdin outfit when Aladdin becomes a prince, like when he becomes like Prince Ali kind of thing, for those who can imagine it. Yeah, they put that on and suddenly he's got magic powers. And I was just like, bruh, I don't like that. But like, I'm like, I don't vibe with this at all. But anyway, it's just, the game's weird. There's no run button. It's just moving, which always kind of bothers me in a platformer. I'm like, let me go fast. Either let my character move fast or like let me press twice to dash or something. But anyway, the Y button picks shit up. I don't really dig that. It's like you pick it. It's kind of like the Super Mario Bros. 2, but bad. And so like you just like pick stuff up and like pick these random blocks up and throw them. I couldn't figure out, like, there clearly was some kind of way that you could like jump higher, but I couldn't figure it out. And so I got to a level where it was like, no, I was done. I was like, I'm not doing this. It's only a 2-hour game. And I was like, I'm not doing this. So, don't recommend it. I think the Genesis Mickey Mouse games are apparently really good. It's like Castle of Illusion or something like that, which are really nice. But anyway, if you want to see like an interesting platformer and you really like platformers, give it a shot. It's kind of neat, but didn't quite work for me. The other one that I played, which I nearly threw my SNES Mini out the fucking window because this is such a stupid game. And I'm really pissed off because this game is on like top 100 lists. So again, this is why I hate lists. So like people talk about this game as if it's good. And I'm infuriated. I have a fucking bone to pick with Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage, which is the most fucking 90s name of any game I've ever played. Because if you were a kid in the 90s and you liked Spider-Man, Venom, and Carnage were the obsession of the 90s when it comes to Spider-Man. Now, this is made by LJN, which, if you've ever watched the Angry Video Game Nerd, you'll know that LJN has made some fucking bullshit. And this is one of those fucking games where it looks like it's good. Like you think it might be, but it's not. It's a side-scrolling beat 'em up. And Spider-Man looks like a fucking psychopath in this. Like he's straight up, like his sprite is like, his head's like down. There's no lines on him. And he's just kind of like, he walks like some dude who's like roided out or some shit. And he has the craziest lines. Like I will post this in the Discord and on our How Long to Beat site. But there is one thing, and Spider-Man he's surrounded by flames on like a boat, okay? And he says, okay, you want to act like animals? Then I'll treat you like animals. From this moment on, you'll get no mercy from Spider-Man. And I was like,
What the hell?
did I miss something in Spider-Man? Or is he a psychopath? Like
That is very 90s.
right? And there's no symbiote or anything. And I was like, what? But anyway, I just thought that was funny. But it's terrible. Like you move side. Okay. So in a brawler, right? Like obviously, you're moving across a platform and whatever, like you're going side to side, but the objectives are so insane. Like at one point you're in the Fantastic Four's headquarters and you have to walk to one side and you get to the end and then it says, go, and it points you back the direction you came. So you basically just have to go back and forth like an arbitrary amount of times before it's like, oh, you got the thing. And you're like, this isn't game design. You just sent me back and forth on the level 3 times. What the heck's going on? And like hit detection is dumb. They also don't show you like I don't really mind if I don't see health bars, but you get these enemies. You know what? No, I do mind. You get these enemies who like boss enemies who have like a green health bar and it's just like invincible until it turns red. And oh my God, the only way to beat people in this game is you basically just have to run up and spam the punch button. Because if they get off any attack, good fucking luck dodging half of these things. And all the enemies are crazy. They're just like teenagers. Why is Spider-Man beating up teenagers? Like I just didn't understand. He's just like beating up like random folks, and all the sprites are the exact same all the time. Which, look, I know, it's fine, SNES, whatever, but it's so bad. It's just so bad.
It's not been a good week for you, has it?
Well, in my playing, I'll get to one that has been really good, but no, it hasn't. It's been a week that made me a very sad boy. I just, and I wanted it to be good. Like people said they liked it, and I was like, what were you fucking smoking? Like this game is fucking crazy. Like it's so bad. And Spider-Man can do like web slinging, and it's terrible. Like he like swings and like, okay, look, I would like. I looked up the manual and I still couldn't figure out what was going on because I would press the swing and sometimes he'd just let go halfway through. Like how he would go and he'd just be like, nah, I don't want to swing anymore.
Take me, Jesus.
And I was like, okay, I guess we're not doing that now. So I was like, what is the point? You can play as Venom though, and that was kind of cool, I guess. But he has the exact same moveset as Spider-Man, so what was the point? Again,
Oh no.
the moveset wasn't different. It was just, oh, you're Venom now, but you're just Spider-Man, but you're black. So I was like,
Same moves, double the fun.
yeah, fucking kill me, man. Don't play Spider-Man and Venom. Maximum Carnage. Stupid name.
Oh,
Anyway, Rick, what did you retire? Because I know, Paula, you got nothing.
a shocker. in our like show notes, it's just permanently like in squared brackets tumbleweed for Paula's retirements from week to week because there's never any. It's not a thing. I only have one retirement this week, and it's just the classic. I don't finish puzzle games. This is a game called Elis for iOS. They did release an Infinity version. Both have been delisted because mobile gaming fucking sucks. But I have a copy of the original sat on my old iPod, which I'm slowly trying to plug through before it completely dies on me to make sure I play all the things. It's fine. It's a little bit limited mechanically. I can tell you whatever I want. It's not worth jumping through the hoops to find. There's a million other puzzle games that you can just get. So it was fun for the 20 minutes I spent with it, and that was it.
Another in Rick's back catalog of games you can't play.
Yeah. It's me, games you can't play anymore. Alex's games you should only play a little bit of.
Yes.
And Paula's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild run number, what are we up to now?
3.
Round number 3.
And that takes us beautifully into what we're playing this week.
So yeah, I've been playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think I'm like 18 hours in or something like that. I've been enjoying my time with the game. I'm still discovering things I didn't know existed in the game. The other day, I actually didn't know you could use food to bait any animal or monster in the game. Like, and for the monsters, if you give them food, they pretty much stop caring about you. And until the food runs out, they're just eating. And that was like a good trick in case I encounter myself dying somewhere. That it had happened about 10 times already. So yeah, like on my way to the second Divine Beast. This time I did Van Meadow, the bird one, first, and I'm on Goron City, and I'm on my way to Rudania. So yeah, fun times. I also been filling up the companion. Fun fact, I probably have to send Rick like the link to it, but I got like the best fucking screenshot ever. Not a screenshot, the picture. I was taking a picture of one of the of a Hylian retriever, and I was about to take the picture, and it did like a playful pose because it was about to start like following its own tail, and that's the picture I sent you the other night, and I think it was adorable, so I need to share it somewhere. That aside, I've been playing Kokopolo. According to the game, 54% done with the first character, and it has been a lot of fun. Like, I didn't know I like fast-paced puzzle games, arcade stuff like this. No, I do, and I think I'm gonna like look for more after I finish this one. And finally, I'm replaying the Liar Princess and the Blind Prince on the Nintendo Switch, because this month there's like not really a sequel, but a game by the same developers. It has like more or less the same art style and the same kind of storytelling that falls in line like with storybooks or fairy tales and stuff like that. So they are like putting out a game this month that is called The Wicked King and the Noble Hero, which is adorable. So I went back and I'm replaying The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince because I never actually like got all the collectibles. And for this game, I would advise you get all the collectibles because they unlock what is called a collection, where they give you these little pages with concept art from the game. as well as developer notes on or design notes on the details they wanted to get right with the characters. And that is pretty cool if you are into like art books and stuff. It's like your own digital art book that you unlock during the game. So that's been my week. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, so I've been playing much better things, so my week wasn't too terrible. Still playing Mass Effect 2 right now. Love that game. I'm doing all the loyalty missions at the moment. It's so good. Looks so good in 4K. Just fantastic. I love it. Haven't played much of Portal 2 with my partner. We'll probably play more of that this week. I've spent most of my time, aka about 23 hours, playing Dicey Dungeons, which is roguelites, man. They fucking get me every time.
You message us and you're like, I've done it again.
I did it, yeah. Although this one, it's interesting. This one is less like, I'd almost call it like a casual roguelite in a sense. Like it's the way it works is you oh god, how do I even explain this? You're a series of dice going into a dungeon that is controlled by Lady Luck herself. And in each round you get a roll of dice. It has beautiful artwork that kind of looks like Steven Universe-y sort of. Like it's like this really beautiful artwork, and you have like these cards essentially, and then you roll dice each turn and you can slot the dice into different cards. But there are, so far I've unlocked 6 characters, and there's like a final round that I'm almost there. And in each 6, there are 6 different routes that you can play in each one of them, and each one slightly changes the rules. And each character has different plays in a completely different way. So it's really neat because I was close. I actually thought like yesterday, I was like, I think I'm going to retire this. It's getting too hard. But what I realized is that like the game is really intelligent because I tend to win more runs than I lose. But I do really feel like every time I'm like really learning. So there's 5 floors in each one. So each like run of a game, like a success could take you probably half an hour, maybe less, to get through it. If you're like getting really good, you can kind of optimize it, but some are more difficult than others, right? And so you can kind of like, if you're getting stuck on one, it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to go try this one now, or I'm going to bounce back on this one. And to like fully beat the game, you don't actually have to beat every single character's run. You have to beat 5 out of 6 though. But that's kind of nice because so far I'm finding that like you should be able to beat 5 out of the 6. There's usually like one run in it that you might just be like, dude, I can't do this one unless you like really optimize what you're doing. But it is super fucking good. Like it is just, the gameplay loop is fucking tight, and it is kind of different and interesting each time. And you can't like cheese the game, but like at the same time, you really can learn like good strategies. And it feels like each time, like, you know how sometimes in a roguelite you get on a run and you're just like, there's no way, brah, like I'm fucked, like it's just like it's not happening. It always feels like there's hope in each run, which is really nice. And like, there's a clear objective each time, which I think really helps me. And like knowing the rule set, it's really nice. Like it just kind of changes your brain on it. And so like, yeah, I've repeated the same 5 floors now, like so many times, but each time I'm coming at it from a new perspective. And that's just, I really like that. I really like that I can choose how I want to tackle it, and that it's just my equipment that's random, right? Like the way you play, you choose, but your equipment will be randomized. And I don't know, it's like that little difference makes a big difference for me in terms of something. So I'm probably going to beat this one. Loop Hero might have broke the spell for me when it comes to roguelites.
Broke the loop.
Yeah, there it is. Broke it. So now I'm going to get through them. But again, like I said, this one is kind of casual because like there's a very clear destination set out for you, and like it's not hidden. Like you're not like guessing at what you need to do. It's like very clear, and it unlocks things in a really steady progression, and you feel like every time you win, you get something, right? Like it's not it's not just like, oh, now that you won this, go replay it 100 more times. It's like, no. You beat that, you're done. You don't ever have to play that like round again. You can if you want. You never need to. You move along, right? Which I really like. And speaking of good side-scroller beat-em-ups, I'm playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time on the SNES.
Oh, that's supposed to be a classic, yeah.
It is a fucking classic, man. This game is dope. So this is exactly why I played this after Spider-Man, and I went, oh yeah, Spider-Man's fucking trash. This is a good game. You have 4 characters. They all play differently. They have different stats. I started playing out as Leonardo. That was a mistake because I'm not very good at brawlers. So I went back and played as Michelangelo because his normal attack is much stronger. You want to look up the manual because it'll show it. But like, oh, dude, it's so much fun. You can like, hit them down. Like there's like different combos to like throw them at the screen, to like bash side to side. You got your special attacks. Like the enemies actually make sense because they're all like the Foot Clan, but like that makes sense. Like the Foot Clan is who you're fighting, right? Yeah, it's stupid, but like it's cohesive. And that's something I have to say. The design elements in the world, it's just cohesive. It just all makes sense together. You're like, of course, this is the Ninja Turtle world. Like this makes sense. So I really, 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 really like this one and highly recommend it. Like I'm certainly going to beat it. I'm like halfway through right now. It's not long, right? It's like 2 hours long. But yeah, just so fucking good. Anyway, Rick, take us home. What are you playing?
Yeah, so as you can see, I've got quite a lot on the go. So firstly, with a few of the other people in the How Long to Beat Discord, I'm playing a game of... You'll be able to help me with how on earth I'm supposed to pronounce the name of this French town, Alex.
Carcassonne.
Carcassonne, okay.
Isn't it Carcassonne?
It's a board game. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm
Spanish,
doing. I don't really know.
You're right, Paula. I don't know if it's French or Spanish.
I don't know what I'm doing in the game either, so that's quite fitting. But
so there's 3 different pronunciations.
The one that's a board game. Anyway, they gave it away on Epic a while back, so you're likely to have it in your library somewhere. It's board game. It's fine. I don't really have a strong opinion of it, mainly because I don't really fully understand what's going on. I don't think I'm yet to win a game. I've played a couple of like online ones to try and get a grasp of the rules. I don't really think I understand what's going on. I'll keep saying that 5 or 10 times more, but it's fine. Been playing some more Mirror's Edge Catalyst. It's Mirror's Edge, and I kind of like that. But the little things that they get wrong in the sequel, I just find grate more and more on me the more and more I play of it. The delivery missions and what have you are fine. There's like time trial runs where the star times just seem complete bollocks. I don't know if it's based on like a percentage of the community that's completed it and some people have cheated and ruined the stars. I'm not really sure what's going on. Maybe I just need to get good. I'm playing it and I'm sort of enjoying it, but it's also deeply disappointing in a number of ways as well. Vagrant Story's on there. I haven't really done anything on that just because I was smashing out Pokemon, but I am planning to put more time into that. I started a game on PC called Lichdom Battle Mage, which is interesting. It's like a first-person shooter, but you don't have guns. You have like magic spells on your gauntlet. And it's a bit like a brawler because then you've got a block and a counter-attack. I've never played anything quite like it, and I get the impression that it's a bit of a divisive release. So far, and I've only played maybe 45 minutes, so this is subject to change either way. So far, I actually quite like it. I think it does a lot of really interesting things. It's just about at the limits of what my poor 960M graphics card can do in my laptop. But I am having a good time with it, and touch wood, that will continue. And then I've got 4 Vita playthroughs, all in one way or another stemming from the hacking that I've been doing.
You have a problem.
What's the problem? Oh, I have a problem. Right. Multiple problems, and comprehension is clearly one of them. So the first of those 4 is the Vita port of Quake, which I played purely as a curiosity. I have no intention of playing any more of this. It's Quake on Vita. It's actually quite interesting to see this big PC game squeezed down into a little handheld. It's not really designed for analog control. It's very imprecise with that control method. But it's cool that it's been ported, and all 3 of the Quake games are on there. So I'll maybe have a fiddle with the other 2 at some point as well. The second and third game are both unlocalized rhythm games that have fan patches that I've been mucking around with. The first of those is Taiko Drum Master V5. I don't really understand quite how it's styled, but that is the most wholesome game going. It's just like these happy little drums, and when you completed a song, it'll go, "Great job, Adam!" It's just like the stupidest English, but it is so charming, and it helps that the game underneath it is really good. The other one is a game called, I'm not really sure how you're supposed to say this out loud, but it's IA/VT Colorful. It's kind of more idle themed. The selection music is excellent. The rhythm gameplay is fine. The idle side, sort of styling and all the costumes that I could take or leave, I couldn't really give any less of a toss about those. But it's been a nice one to play, and the music is a real standout, especially compared to Taiko Drum Master, because the music there's fine, but I feel like the music there is elevated by the drum gameplay. Even on Vita versus, I've had the privilege of playing one of the arcade machines where you've got like the proper sticks and a big drum, and it's a whole other experience there. But even on Vita, it's fine. Whereas in IVT, it's the other way around. It feels like the music elevates what is actually quite rote by the numbers rhythm gameplay. Both fun. I'm sure I'll be picking away at both of them over the next few months in fits and starts. And then the last game, and this has been a real ride, is a game called Uppers. Now you can play this in English on PC. There was supposed to be a PS4 port, but I don't know if that's actually happening anymore. But you can play it in English on PC if you don't have a hacked Vita. From a mechanical standpoint, there's actually not loads going on. It's quite a basic sort of beat 'em up. If you've ever played any of the Kenka Bancho games, it is exactly that. It's just a continuation of that. What really elevates it is the styling, just to the point of comedy. So the concept is you are these two best friends who've gone to an island in Japan where people who are like thugs and beat everybody up get popular and get like all the ladies. And so you're just on this quest to beat up everyone else on the island and like be the most popular people. This extends to when you're fighting, there'll be like groups of girls just stood around the battle area. They'll shout out, "Oh, do this," and you'll have like a little dialogue pop up on the screen. So maybe be do 3 follow-up attacks, or break a wall by pinning an enemy up against it and beating them through the wall. And if you complete those, you get bonus points, but then you can also walk across to them and they'll give you like a health restore in the form of a love letter. But this is the thing, it's so stupid to the point of comedy, and it gets better. Now, this could be, because it's a fan translation, this could be a quirk of the translation. It could be tongue firmly in cheek, but I feel like the patch came out a little bit too early for that to be the case. But you have like, there's 8, I think, in total, female characters who are more than just window dressing. They have like a role in the plot, and you can pick one of them to be like a support character when you go on missions. They are called queens. So in all the tooltip dialogues, you're like, make sure to talk to your queens between missions. And in my head, I'm just like, we stand. and then once a level, if you run out of health, this thing will trigger where you get like a queen assist, and it'll just be like, I've only seen one so far, but it was one where when my character got like pile drivered and he went flying off the screen, and the screen transitions and he's just landed with his face in his poor girl's crotch, and then it cuts away and it's just him jumping up with his fist in the air and suddenly he's got health back. It's stupid. It's amazingly stupid. I can take or leave the fan service, but it's the funniest thing going. And it elevates what I say is unexceptional gameplay, and I've actually just been having a real blast. So jumping in and out of 5-minute missions in this game, it's massively one I would recommend. It's just so dumb.
Nice. Well, that sounds like a wild game. And with that, we're going to now insert something that was totally done right now and not pre-recorded. But really, to you listeners, it's all pre-recorded. Time to introduce Keith Webb. Hello, listeners, to the random insert that was definitely recorded at the same time as everything else. We've got a special little topic for you today. We're joined by the one and only Keith Webb. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, yeah. How are you guys? You all good? We just had this conversation, but yeah.
All the better for having you here. That's the main thing. Lovely to have you.
It's always better the second time. We're good. We just wanted to ask you some questions because, we all played Go Kokopolo, which is very fun to say. And we wanted to start just by getting to know you a little bit. And we're wondering, I guess actually maybe first, could you just tell us kind of where you based?
Yeah, sure. So I'm based in Oxford in England. And in terms of my background in video games design, so I basically come from an artistic background, an animation background, and I did a degree in digital animation. And this was just when, back in the late 90s, the early 2000s, when things like Toy Story and Pixar was really taking off. But during on that degree, I much more warmed towards the storyboarding side of stuff. So I kind of did all the concept art, the character design, and the storyboards for the animations as opposed to the 3D animation itself. From then, that actually led to me getting a job as a storyboard artist for a company called Traveller's Tales, which is an Oxford-based, which is a UK-based company based in Manchester, so further up north. But they opened a their own branch in Oxford, and that was set up to work on a Crash Bandicoot game, which we can talk about later. But so that's roughly how I got into the industry, and then from then on, basically wanted to branch out and try my own thing.
So did you? Yeah. So you started in art and like with storyboarding. Did you ever kind of imagine you'd be working for video games, or was it just kind of like this happy coincidence?
Yeah, no, I always wanted to. I mean, when I was younger, playing on in the UK, we had the Amiga, which was a Commodore Amiga, but I think for my 10th birthday, and a lot of the games that I liked from there, I didn't realize at the time, but they were the Japanese kind of games. I didn't know where they came from. Things like New Zealand Story, which is a Taito arcade game, which very kind of cutesy, but really well designed in terms of the way the levels are all put together. And I think that inspired me, and my drawing style. Originally, it was kind of based on the more Looney Tunes Western style stuff, but then I think it was influenced. After that, it started to get influenced by the Japanese, kind of cute, not necessarily anime style, but that kind of cuter style.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like the Toriyama, like sort of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice. So.
And was it? Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask off the back of that. Is it the visual type of thing that you were drawn to in terms of games? Did you look for the art more than sort of specific genres or gameplay types or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the kind of, I think that was the first thing, because anything that I didn't necessarily play or have access to, I'd pull out the pages from magazines, anything that looked visually appealing. And the kind of, in terms of the gameplay stuff, anything arcadey is what I like, to kind of clear the screen of enemies type thing. Nothing necessarily too deep in terms of story, but in terms of the fundamental kind of aspect of it that was then, kind of, you'd have a simple idea, but it was built upon every iteration as you went through the game. That's the stuff that really inspired me back then, and that's what I think with Kokopolo, that's the kind of, the birth of that started with the visual style that I started to absorb, and also the gameplay ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down on my little notes here for this interview, like just talking a little bit about the arcadey elements of Kokopolo, because it definitely has that sort of feeling of like clear the stage and move up into this. And I was wondering if there were, I remember, I think I was reading an interview you did, but you talked a little bit about like almost reverse Pac-Man in some ways, of where you're like getting the ghost and then they're chasing you. Can you talk a little bit about the games that inspired it?
Yeah, sure. So actually, what actually inspired the idea of a cat was my parents. When I was living in my parents' house, we had a stray cat that came into the garden. We adopted it. It was a white cat, and it was a little bit wired, and so it kind of act all cutesy. And then when you were stroking it, would suddenly flip out, scratch you, and then obviously that's where the idea of the scratching element idea came from. The idea for the enemies chasing you and having that chain, obviously it was inspired by Pac-Man and the kind of the reverse of that. But also I was thinking recently, I was trying to remember why all the enemies are based on vegetables. And it was because the original idea was for a different game where you'd push the enemies into each other. So it'd be like a food chain. So you had the rabbits would eat the carrots, the enemies like that. And I think the word food chain, and then in my mind, with the chain of enemies chasing you, I think it all kind of came together. The name Kokopolo itself, I think there is a kind of mythological deity called Kokopelli at the time, and I think I took the name from a publisher called Kokopelli Studios, who published a few Japanese games, and I kind of saw that, liked it, and kind of, so all around that time, everything kind of just formed together. It's difficult to try and trace back where everything came from, but somehow it all came together.
Yeah,
you're always sort of telling yourself a little bit what happened, aren't you? You're sort of making up your own mythology a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And in terms of everything sort of coming together in a perfect storm, did that extend to DSiWare, or was that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting, because I think you mentioned you saw it in a magazine, didn't you? Is that right?
And I was definitely going to ask about the process of writing those dev diaries afterwards. But yeah, I suppose if you want to sort of trace this interview starting, I picked up the game purely off the memory of reading those dev diaries, and then brought it to the pod, and Alex and Paula picked it up after the fact. Sorry, go on.
So I think that was in maybe 2006, 2007. So I was working at I just finished working at Traveller's Tales at the time because that studio closed down. But whilst I was there, there was a book that was coming out, which was a tribute book to video games. And it was called Game Paused, and I think I did a bit of artwork for it, which I've called Hyper 8-Bit Memories, and it's a big picture of all the characters, 8-bit characters coming together. Now, Endgamer did an article on the book, and so when they saw that piece, the book was never released, but they did an article. They saw that piece, and they contacted me and said, could I allow them to print a massively poster of it? That's how I got in touch with the magazine, Endgamer, and then I mentioned that I was working on had an idea for a DSi game. At the time, I don't even think DSiWare was a thing, so it was a DS game at the time, which I was putting together and trying to see if I could get a publisher for it. I took that to a few publishers. That didn't work out, but off seeing the magazine, a programmer that worked with friends of mine from Traveller's Tales got in touch with me, and that's how that got rolling. So it's all kind of like the steps that led up to that were all kind of came from that one piece of artwork that I did.
Wow, you just never know what's gonna come
Yeah,
out of it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that, and so the first Kokopolo was released in 2011, and I think the one that you guys are playing is probably the sequel that came out in 2017. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the 3DS one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the first one, actually, we had to, after a couple of years, we had to delist that because it wasn't actually making enough money. We had to pay a insurance fee every month. This was in the early 2010, 2011 time, where any kind of developers had to have professional indemnity insurance or something. We have to pay that, and to keep the company open, and the profits that the game was making wasn't matching that. It was like 36 quid a month or something, so we had to pull it, which is a shame, but it can still be played legitimately, I think.
Yeah, like there's probably a way to get a copy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, so how did it get on DSiWare? Like, did you bring it to like? I'm just curious about this process because I have no idea.
It was back then. I think it was a lot more tricky to get developer status with Nintendo. The program who I mentioned before, who helped out a guy called Zillard, and he worked in Hungary. He'd worked on stuff like Pac-Man pinball and things for the GBA, so he had some contacts with Nintendo back then. My company, Tanuki Studios, and his company, which was called Room for Games back then, joined together, and he had the connections with Nintendo, which allowed us. We had so many hoops to jump through, but that's where that stemmed from. Yeah, nowadays it's a lot easier. I mean, you can set up a company. Indie developers have a much easier time of getting stuff off the ground now.
Yeah, you would have been like just like that's like just before that kind of rush, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think Xbox Live had come out a couple of years before that.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't really. I mean, that was when that first started. I think it was more older, more established companies doing more experimental things as opposed to indie stuff.
Yeah, it's like like Konami and like Capcom and stuff like that.
That's right.
Yeah, Square Enix putting out Final Fantasies, stuff like that. Yeah.
And was there a file size limit for DSiWare? So I remember that was a controversial thing for WiiWare.
Yeah. So there was. We just managed to get it in under the file size. I forget what it was. I'm going to say it was like 16 megabytes or something. I think it was. Yeah. So when I was doing the magazine articles, I plotted out all the sprites beforehand, all the animation, everything, and when we realized what limit we had, I had to go back and basically condense them all, kind of basically demake all the sprites so that they could fit into the memory, which we did. We managed to get them all in, but that was quite a taxing process. But yeah, 16 megabytes, and I think in the first one there is a intro sequence, which unfortunately doesn't have any music to it, and I think we had to make the music size was too big. We had to remove that, or we had to decide early on that wasn't going to happen. If there was ever a chance to do a physical re-release of that for a 10th anniversary, then I might try and get the music back in if that were to happen. I'm not saying it will, but if that were to happen, yeah.
Nice.
But we're not saying it won't either.
Don't know. We'll see. So, I don't know if I. Yeah.
Oh dear! But that is actually one of my enduring memories from the developer diaries is the sprite sheets, particularly of Kokopolo, sort of going through the diagonal slashing animation. Was that a lot of work doing the endgamer stuff, or did they help you some with the writing? What was the process like for that?
I think I wrote it all, and I think they probably came back with some edits on certain things. But no, I think I think I pretty much. I didn't do the layout for the. I think I supplied them with all the artwork and screenshots and stuff, and I think they laid it all out. They might have given me some pointers. I think we knew from the start that it was going to be four issues worth, and so I kind of split the process down into try to get a theme for each one. Like from the inception of the idea and then through to the artwork and things like that. So yeah, that's what I recall. Yeah.
And did you get much sort of? Did you feel like you got much buzz back from that? Because obviously that was a weird time in terms of magazines.
Yeah, it was a weird time in terms of magazines, but also in terms of feedback, because the internet was still probably, this is 2006, 2007, and I think the internet was in, you didn't really have YouTube, did you, back then? You didn't have anything where you could get...
starting.
It was just starting, yeah.
So you couldn't really get much feedback, and I think, I do remember that I was working on a website for the game, for Kokopolo, for the first one, and I was kind of I just happened to log into something like Go Nintendo or something, and I saw Kokopolo on there, and suddenly I was like, what? Wait, I couldn't, obviously they picked it up from the article. I was thinking, is this my website? Did I do that? No, it's actually on a different website. So I do remember that strange experience, but yeah, it was tricky to get feedback. There was a competition that I set up saying that the first 100 people to reply or write to a specific email address could get their name in the credits. I think if anyone were to look at the actual credits in the game, this isn't in the 3D one, it's in the original DS iWare. I think if there are 100 names in there, and maybe not 100 people entered, and maybe, I don't know, there's a secret message in there somewhere. If you read down the first letter of each name, after about the first 40, it spells out something like, I made the rest of these names up because only 40 people entered or something. That's a secret. No one's found that yet, so that's there. If you want to, yeah. There's a scoop.
That's exclusive.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, but it's sorry.
Oh, I was just saying it is interesting because I think, like you sort of mentioned, even just in like 5 years after that kind of thing, like even just now, like I'm maybe 2015 after, I don't know exactly when, but like suddenly now the internet, it's just so many like games like this just kind of explode outward, right? Like there's such a, I feel like now is a good time to go back to it.
Yeah. I mean, I've always, personally with me, I've always liked obscure things, and I think even going back to that picture that I mentioned, that Hyper 8-bit Memories artwork that kind of kicked this whole thing off. If you were to look at that, I think I purposely left out any famous characters, and I think there's obscure games that I put in there, obscure Japanese games. Even I made sure Mario wasn't in it. Some Mario characters are in it, but they're kind of the more obscure ones from like Mario 2, Tri-Clyde, and things like that. But yeah, I like the obscure stuff, and I think because Kokopolo, it would be nice to get. I just would like it to be preserved. I think that's the thing. You don't want it to be forgotten. I don't mind it being obscure, but I don't want it to be completely ignored and forgotten. And that's interesting because in Open Critic, for example, it's currently number 6 out of all 3DS games. Yeah, what's that about? But it doesn't appear in Metacritic, and you have videos about hidden gems on 3DS. You have videos about top 100 games. There's no footage. There's no proof that the game actually exists, which is why I found your podcast so easily, because you're the only people who've mentioned it in like 10 years. So
I know.
And it's funny you say that because we've spoken about that a couple of times ourselves. The idea that these lists get homogenized anyway,
Definitely.
and so everyone has the same hidden gems and things do
Yeah. I mean,
fall into obscurity.
Yeah, is it a hidden gem if it appears in a video with like 75,000 views? You know, it's not. It's no longer a hidden gem. So yeah, but it's interesting. But there's so many games out there. There's so many kind of people have put a lot of work and stuff, and it just gets forgotten. And I think that's why. And again, not saying this will happen, but if for the 10th anniversary there was a way of having a limited physical release of these, it might be quite nice. You know, I'm just saying. You know,
yeah, it's something to hold, something to, as you say, to prove that it was there.
Like I said, now's the time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just like with obscure games. Like, I mean, that's what we're all quite into as well. At least, you know, I tend to go and play. I mean, I've been playing just kind of obscure SNES games lately that I'm like,
yeah,
I haven't really heard of this, but whatever, try it out. You know, and like I just love going back and finding, because I think what happens is you find interesting ideas, right? Oftentimes. And sometimes it's not always like, you know, I've popped in a few games where I was like, oh, not super polished, but this idea is really cool, you know? And like, it's really fun to get to go and find something like that. But then it's also a real treat when you find a game that, like, this is what I think blew my mind with Kokopolo, is that when we were looking it up, I was like, this game reviewed really well. I was like, why didn't I hear anything about this? Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was a young kid personally on the DS when things came out. 2006, when we started high school or something. So, like, you know, it's hard to find games anyway when you're young. But yeah,
you made the fatal mistake of not reading the hit UK gaming magazine Endgame.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
should have imported it. Dang it!
Everybody read that. Yeah.
Wow. You mentioned in terms of sort of the file size and cramming things down. When we were sort of doing the reading around sort of the things you did before Kokopolo, there's some stuff about you doing art for old Java games. I wonder if there are any parallels in terms of the downsizing and things there.
It was that was probably my first job, and it wasn't necessarily for Java games, but it was for the mobile, really early mobile animations and kind of picture messages and stuff like that. And I think it was really simple GIFs, you know, really pixel art stuff, black and white, Game Boy monochrome style artwork. So I did that for about it was about 7 or 8 months to a year. That company closed down, but I think that allowed me to figure out how to get something, how to be quite precise, you know, with what you need to get on screen in terms of the stuff. I mean, because I came from a 2D hand-drawn background as well, I tend to draw a black outline around everything. A lot of these, I mean, you mentioned you were looking at the old SNES kind of library and stuff. I mean, what they can do purely just with color without that outline is, you know, so something that you look up close, pixel art, and you can't tell what it is, but as you get further away, boom, you know, something really good. I can't do that. I need to have that outline around everything, which obviously increases the pixel size because it's one pixel line around everything. Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for anyone who can do, you know, proper pixel art where it's just really well thought out.
Oh, it's incredible stuff. I mean, I've been experimenting with, like, you know, working on a little Game Boy game because I like making old stuff. And like, I agree with you. I need that outline. I'm like, I need that outline right there. Like, it shrinks it in, but it just, I don't know, it does something for my brain.
I've been trying to get into pixel art because I'm getting to game development.
Yeah, cool.
And I come also like from a traditional art background, so trying to. I initially tried to do like the amount of detail on the little pixels, and that doesn't really work out. So you have to pick and choose what's the most important thing you want to showcase. Yeah,
exactly. And it's kind of like something, especially detail on the face or something like that. You know, if you want to put a nose on there, you know, it's kind of like, is it just a nose and eyes, and you kind of figure out the best color to represent all of them, if that makes sense, you know, as opposed to having all the individual detail. And it is tricky. And with animation as well, this not so much now, because you can still have the appearance of pixel art without the restrictions. But I think when I was working out how to condense all the artwork, so you'd have to repeat certain frames, you know, make sure you're kind of using the best resources there and being quite resourceful. So yeah, it's tricky. You can get that style across now without the restrictions, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. There is something fun about working within restrictions, but then once you
and that's the thing, because you mentioned that, and games really at its core is just a bunch of rules and restrictions, really, when you think about it. I mean, it's basically you've got open world stuff, and then you have the more kind of unique, the more rules and restrictions you impose on something begins to develop. That's how a game really develops, and I guess the same with creating them as well.
That's cool. I never thought of it like that, but yeah, you're right. Like, because again, games are all these rules, and I guess really the restrictions is the rules for the creating, and makes making a game a little bit of a game itself.
It's true. Well, really meta,
yeah, getting real meta now.
Oh dear.
Awesome, fantastic. Let's see. Is there anything else we want to chat? We've been going. We're keeping you a while. We just got lots of questions for you, Keith.
That's cool. That's cool.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit, though, because I know you worked on Crash Twinsanity with Traveler's Tales. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because I'm wondering, I mean, working with them, that must have opened some doors up, right? Like, I mean...
Yeah. I mean, what I'll say about that, I think it was like 4 years, the best working experience in terms of a team that I've had, in my life. And it was a great bunch of people, probably about 60 people in total, but 30 people at one time. So, you had a bit of kind of people coming and going from the team. I joined that because a friend of mine from university originally went there about a year before as a 3D character modeler. And then that's when they were looking for a storyboard artist. And like I said, at university, I kind of started to, basically focus on that. So I joined the team. There was no real necessary hierarchy in the way it was put together. And I think that's really comes across in the game. It is very much a mismatch of lots of random ideas, but tried to make it work. And I think everybody had a voice and everyone had a ability to put something in there. We had no oversight from any of the other Crash teams. And I think we just researched the old games, decided what aspects we liked, put it in, built a story around it, got something out the door. It went through so much so many changes, and there's so much missing content, lost content there, which I might try and do a proper video about. I've kind of done some interviews about it in the past, but there's a treasure trove of stuff. I've actually got a lot in my attic, which I'll probably get out and scan in and talk through at some point. But yeah, it's got a cult following. I think mainly because of the story and the humor in it, but also, the kind of the wackiness of it, And when I was storyboard concept artist, I came up with the name Twinsanity as well, because they needed that right at the last minute. They didn't have a name for it. I think it was one Saturday, popped into the office, and the producer from America was like, quickly, we need to trademark a name for it. And I'm like, the enemies in the game are a couple of twin parrots, so Twinsanity, and that's how that came about.
It's amazing.
But everybody in the team had an input, which for 95% of the time was great, but the remaining 5%, when you have anyone with creative vision, if that doesn't match, there's always a clashes. And I think story and gameplay was the main clash in terms of focus on different sides of the team wanting different things. I think in the end we came up with a great kind of middle ground between them, but that was a bit of an issue there.
Was Twinsanity the one where he's connected with the mad scientist one? So I've never played any, but I feel like I remember the adverts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that was, I don't know how long into the development because that became the main focus of it, but I don't think that was there from the start. I think that probably came in. I started about a year into development, and that was just starting to ramp up then. So that was an aspect that came out of the development and then was kind of used as a focus.
It kind of blows my mind that you had so much freedom with an established IP like that. I think that's great.
And for a lot of us, we're all still friends now. We kind of catch up every so often, and a lot of them have gone to various other companies. I think none of them, everybody kind of laments the fact that no one's been able to recapture those few years of that kind of allowing everybody to just basically do their own thing. The Vivendi Universal, who were in charge of the Crash franchise back then, did come down and threaten to fire us a couple of times. so it wasn't without threat of of being fired, but we got it out in the end. So yeah.
Yeah, sometimes when you find that like kind of creative spark with a team, right? It's just so hard. You're like, you want to get that. You want to get that back, right? That kind of.
We were talking.
Go on. Sorry.
I was saying with that, we were talking about. You have things like Banjo, Kazooie, which became ukulele. You had I forget, Castlevania, Bloodstained. Mega Man Mighty Number 9, so you have those kind of...
Not so much that one, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But you have the kind of spiritual sequels. I think we have been, we always talk about whether there could be an opportunity to do a spiritual sequel to that, not using the Crash franchise, but something similar. But I think a lot of the fans of the game are Crash fans first and foremost, so I think they would rather see something official with Crash in that we weren't involved with, as opposed to an unofficial release that didn't have Crash in. So that's my thoughts.
Right, I see.
Albeit, I suppose that's so hard to gauge from the outside. It's a tricky one. You almost don't know until you try it, I think.
So you do it, yeah. That's right.
Stuff like that.
Like, I know it's weird for me. I love Castlevania, and then Bloodstained didn't quite sit with me. And I'm like, I don't know. It's so weird. It's weird too, because even with Yooka-Laylee, I really liked their side-scrolling platformer that they made. I was like, this is amazing. And then same with Bloodstained, I liked their 8-bit game they made. I was like, Curse of the Moon is amazing. And I'm like, it's almost like the things I think I want, I don't. I just want the cool things they want to try. I don't know.
That's true.
You don't really know what you want. That's the thing.
I have no idea.
And if I might, what of that is the thing you wish the most could have been in the final game?
In terms of Twinsanity?
Yeah.
I think there's a few... What is it? There was a big chunk of the game that was cut out, but a lot of it was just in concept stages or concept phases or kind of ideas that were kind of. I don't really know. I don't think there's anything that I think is missing from the overall. I think the flow it flows okay as it is. I think you put something else in, it might bloat it a little bit. There was the biggest, most developed stage that was cut was one when it was inside Coco, who is Crash's sister, inside her brain. Kind of like they get teleported in there. Now, there's very little footage that exists of that, but I think there were some builds somewhere, but none of us have been able to find it. But there was an enemy in there, which was an elephant that kind of spat out enemies out of its nose, out of its trunk. That wasn't in the final game, wasn't in Twinsanity at all, but very recently, that Crash mobile game, I think it's called Crash on the Run or something like that, I forget what it's called, they'd put that character, in it, so it never appeared, it was just cut content, it never made it. They've obviously paid homage to that by putting it in that game, so, people pick up on the cut content, and I think they really like it, and they try and kind of put it in where possible.
Yeah, and that's amazing for that to just crop up out of nowhere. 15 years later?
That's right. It took us. I mean, nobody kind of reached out and asked us about it, so we just saw it on there. But it's good. I mean, we like that. We like that kind of people paying homage to it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Did you say something, Rick? I was just gonna go ahead, Rick. This is classic.
the perks of the format. I wondered, just in terms of the Traveller's Tales times, if you had any stories about two other things that were going. One, I think you were involved in, from what I'd read, which was the Simpsons game.
Yeah.
Is a fascinating thing to me. But also whether you'd sort of had any brushes with the sort of thing that would become the Lego franchise, which obviously Traveller's Tales bread and butter.
Yeah, we do. So we had first with the Lego stuff. So we did Crash Twinsanity, then we did some Super Monkey Ball Adventures. So Sega Super Monkey Ball game. I think all the creativity from Twinsanity, by the time we came to Monkey Ball, that all dried up. So it was like a really dull game. I admit it. Nobody really. I think we had good ideas for it, but it was a different time. After that, we were going to work on some Guinness Book of Records game, and I think the company, our Oxford branch, none of us really wanted to do that because we all like platformers, we kind of like that stuff. Then the Traveller's Tales main Manchester branch would have had the deal with Giant. I forget what the name was, but they came together to form TT Games, which had the Lego license. We worked on a prototype for Batman Lego back then, and we went to Legoland just before. It must have been 2005 time, because Revenge of the Sith, the third Star Wars film, had come out, and we got some Lego prototypes of that, so we knew a bit about the film before it came out because we had things of it. That was being developed by the main Traveller's Tales branch. But yeah, I think that's when they started to focus on Lego games, because that's where the money was, I think, and that's when our studio was closed down. And yeah, we were all offered the opportunity to go up to Manchester to work there. Only one person out of 30 people took them up on that offer, because he lived in Manchester anyway. So I think he's still there now. I think he's a guy called Tim Webster, no relation to me and not Weebster, but so I think he's still working on the Lego games up there. Yeah, 15 years later.
Wow. But yeah, no, it definitely became a massive thing. That's the Legoland in Windsor, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I've been there so many times as a kid. Loved that place. Yeah. And then in terms of the Simpsons stuff, was that?
Yeah.
I imagine so that was, you didn't have the same creative freedom you did as with.
Nah. So there was a company called Rebellion. Don't know if you've heard of them. They kind of do. Yeah. So they're based in Oxford as well, and they basically had the. So they didn't work on the original Simpsons game, but they did do a Wii port of it, I believe, or a PS2 port. They did a port of it, and they had some exclusive stages in it. And so I was brought in to storyboard up ideas for the exclusive stages and the kind of, some content for it. I don't know how much of it made it into the actual game, but that was my involvement in that. And it wasn't it was probably about 4 or 5 months, so it wasn't a massive chunk of time, but yeah, that's how I got involved with that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't really have much to go on that. It's just I knew you'd done it, and I just wanted to sort of touch on it a little bit. If we go back to sort of the Kokopolo stuff, when we were talking about the game, one of the things that we sort of discussed quite a lot of was the map, in terms of whether there could be more, whether there could have been less. I sort of felt like it was a little bit too small, and it could have been done with being a bit bigger and showing the cannons and things like that. Alex vehemently disagreed with me, if that's the right way to say that.
Yeah. So
sorry, go on.
Something really interesting. The DSi version has a much smaller viewport, as it were, so you can see less ahead, less behind. So it gives you the sense of needing to react really fast because you don't know what's coming up. You know what I mean? The 3DS one has more extended, so you can see further ahead. You can kind of, you still have that sense of impending, needing to make a quick decision, but because you can't see the whole map, you can't do the routes, you can't plan out route efficiency, so you can't work out what is the best way around it. So there's kind of, you reduce one aspect and you lose something of the kind of the fast-paced feel to it, and then you increase one, you have the more strategic planning element of it. You know what I mean? So I think it depends what you naturally warm to in terms of a game. So yeah, I did find that. I find with the first one, it was much more tricky. I'll see if I got a example. You had to know the stages really well in order to properly react to everything, I think. Yeah.
And I suspect that speaks to your arcade bent in terms of wanting it to be, you've got it up and running. I love that.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see there, you can see how big the sprite is, you can see how far ahead you can see. Mm-hmm. So,
for those watching, listening, it's like just a small kind of viewport.
Yeah. So got that. We have worked on a prototype for a Switch version or something like that, and that allows you to zoom in and zoom out. You could basically zoom out and see the whole of the stage. Playing through that, in my mind, I thought that'd be great. I thought that'd be really cool because you can figure out, you can see where everything, see all the enemies moving around. But playing through it just seems very slow. It's running at the same speed, but it just seems so slow. And so I kind of, if we were to get back on finishing that off, I think we'd have a middle ground in terms of zoomed in a little bit, but then allowing you to zoom in and out, maybe in a time attack mode where you can then work your way around it. But it is interesting. It's something that certainly I had to spend a bit of time thinking about that, and it's interesting that you two had different views on it.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're in a position where you can see the whole map at the start, I wonder whether being able to see that before you start and then zooming most of the way in, because then you can plan your route, but then you also have what you don't remember and having to react to the bits that maybe you misremember.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in that position, presumably the map's got to go at that point because you've only got the one window.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the map on the bottom screen has to go. Yeah, and also any kind of touch screen elements. When you eat the enemies, obviously.
Yes, of course. With the roulette on the bottom screen.
That's right. So with the 3DS one is okay because you can eat up to I think 25 enemies in that, which is great. But the DS one, you can only eat 6. So if you're running around, that was based on I think it was to do with there was technical limitations for that. So, so if you had 12 enemies chasing, you would only eat the first 6, and then you still be chasing. You'd have to work on the bottom screen whilst also moving the top one, which is really, really tricky. But yeah, so any Switch version would remove the bottom screen functionality completely.
Yeah, because I loved that. That's the thing that I loved too, is the sense of speed. Like, I was like, yeah, I was like just dashing through and running around. Like, I don't know, I just found that really enjoyable. But I can see what you mean. I do think probably part of that was because the camera's following me around, right? And like there is just this feeling of going through. But yeah, I guess if it was zoomed out, I'd be like, I guess I'm fast. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's for sure.
Yeah, tricky balance. Yeah.
It feels really speedy, but it is set up like in such a way that you can still like make those precise movements you need to do. So I started to play the game this morning, by the way. So
okay, cool. It is. I think a lot of people did have, certainly with the first one, I think there was some feedback about the difficulty of it, and I think that was mainly to do with the speed. We put a kind of a slower speed option in there, and I think maybe when I was playing, because obviously I was developing the first one, in my mind I knew the level layouts, and it's difficult to then remove that from your memory, so you're looking at something new. So I think we did put mirror mode actually in the first one, which then really messes you up because you think you know the level but you don't, and you're like, I know I got to go that way, but oh no I don't, you know what I mean. But yeah, in terms of the feedback from the first one was that the speed and some of the placement of the enemies was a little bit brutal, and so with the second one that you guys played, I tried to curtail that a little bit.
It's almost weird because I have to be honest, I thought the second one was like a 3D upscale of the first one.
Yeah,
and it's only then actually when we were talking about it here that Alex sort of pointed out that actually no, that's like its own whole game. So I'm still yet to go back. So that'll be an interesting comparison.
I mean, they are very similar. They're kind of like they obviously all the level layouts of the first one are completely different bosses, but the actual main core of the game is basically the same. But it was the idea when we did the 3D one was how do we add any 3D elements to it, and by doing a direct port of the first one, the maps were set up in a way that didn't really allow for it. So I thought take the opportunity, reward people who played the first one by giving them a brand new follow-up to it, but also make it a little bit more accessible in terms of easier for newcomers to pick up. I'd say the first one has, later on as you progress through the game, there's a lot more innovation in the first one, which I took out of the second one because I thought it was actually a bit too tricky, a bit too taxing. There's a few interesting things that in terms of the layouts that I include in the first one, which the second one is a little bit more mundane, I'd say, but to make it a bit more accessible. Yeah.
And if there were to be a third one, what kind of things would you want to do differently, maybe based on what you've done with the first two?
Yeah, so a third one, like I said, a Switch. Probably what I'd do is I'd do a Switch mishmash of the two of them. So like the best aspects from both, and I think the zooming in and the zooming out is something that I would like to get working in there. Like I said, we do have a prototype. It would just take a bit more time to actually get that to a release ready stage. It's interesting. Kokopolo was never supposed to be the main game series that my company would do. Is like probably the equivalent of maybe Pikmin to what Nintendo is, So it's like it's not what they're known for. It's the little thing. So I'd like to branch out and do the other game ideas I like to work on. But yeah, Kokopolo. Back in these developer diaries, I always talked about a sequel which I called Kokopolo Paradise, which would be kind of RPG style thing. In my mind, I see it very similar to like the Paper Mario style view. So you have the 2D characters on the 3D background. That might be something in the future to do, to kind of work out how to do that.
Oh, there is
nice. And there was supposed to be a third one as well, wasn't there? If I remember rightly, there were three things. There was a sequel. There was the action RPG, and if I go back to the article, wherever it was.
Did I mention? I could have realized there was 2D side scroller, which I kind of like. Because in my mind, the way I saw it was Kokopolo. The ones that you've played are like the Zelda 1. The Kokopolo Paradise is like the Zelda 3, but there's always that weird second one. There's the Mario 2 weirdness and the Zelda 2 weirdness. And so the second one would be Kokopolo Dash, which is a 2D side scroller kind of spin off series, which might introduce characters that are never ever seen again, you know what I mean? Just purely for that one thing as a tribute to all that stuff. Whether I get around to doing that, but that's in my mind. That's what that second kind of phase would be. It'd probably be rubbish, but it doesn't matter if it's terrible because everyone hates the second. Well, no, it's
Yeah, exactly.
It has its fun.
Yeah. Just in like 2 decades, people will look back and go, "No, that was the masterpiece," right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It would be when VR's overtaken YouTube. There'll be people doing hollow essays on the magic of the obscure second Kokopolo entry.
Yeah. In fact, what the hell? Let's just say it's been released, and then I don't have to make it, and then just because no proof of it existing. Is on the internet. We can say it was released and now it's just been forgotten.
Did you say you did it for the Ouya? No one can prove any different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No one preserved it, so you just I don't know. We just can't find it. Maybe it's physical somewhere. Who knows?
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh dear.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's cool.
Kept you for long.
No worries. Yeah, it was really good.
This is great. And if you ever have any more news or anything, you let us know. Happy to chat with you. It's great to hear about these things. Where can listeners learn more about your work or follow you? I don't know if you want to plug anything or not.
Find out what's coming next, when it is or isn't.
In the next 10 years, because that's how long these things take on this thing. But yeah, no, website www.webstar.com, but that's really out of date, and that's got my concept art on from maybe the Crash Bandicoot days and stuff like that. I do have a Kokopolo Twitter account because, like I said, the 10th anniversary is coming up. That's something I'll probably start to populate a little bit more. There's nothing on there. There hasn't been on anything for years, but I'll start to ramp that up, I think, as we approach the 10th year. If it looks like something might be ready to announce then. But we'll see.
Awesome.
Fantastic. And we'll put those in the links down below. Why don't you hit smash like and subscribe? Sorry.
Rich just loves to put that plug in. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Keith.
No worries. That's great.
Well, wasn't that an incredible interview? Genuinely, though, it was really, really fun to have Keith on, and hopefully we're going to have Keith on again in the future. So keep an ear out for that, I guess.
Keep your eyes on the web.
Yeah, keep your eyes on the...
That's terrible.
Can't get one day without a pun.
And this was a double whammy.
But again, thank you, Keith, for coming out. It was really
genuinely
cool
a great time. Genuinely a really lovely interview.
Kokopolo is still on the 3DS. $8 Canada, so check it out. Are we ready now for the final segment of the day? How long to beat?
Are we ever ready? Are we ever ready for? How long to beat the game?
Yeah, let's go.
It is my editing week, so let's have a look.
Rick, you're causing problems for yourself in the edit.
Yep.
This whole day has just been a problem for me. It's just not been okay. You
haven't seen my microphone.
What's the game?
Oh my god, what's happened to your microphone? Hang on, no. Let's see what's happened to your microphone.
it didn't work this morning, so it only worked if I press the
Just to tape
dial.
it.
Listen, if it's stupid and it works, how stupid is it really?
Okay, what's the game?
The game, and I'm assuming this is a game, I've literally never heard of this before in my life, so I kind of want us to do it. The Charnel House trilogy.
The
What?
Charnel House?
Yeah, whatever that is.
Is this a point and click?
Quite possibly.
Really?
I literally haven't. This is the first time I've ever heard of this thing.
It's on Steam?
It's on
Yeah, that's-
Steam.
Yes,
yeah.
it is. Yeah. So it is actually an actual game. The chronicle of one fateful night aboard a train bound for Auga Peak. 3 thrilling, horrifying adventure games in one from the depths of the sepulchre, starring Madeline Rue, Peter Willington, Jonathan Greer, Jim Sterling, and Ben Chandler as Grub.
I wonder if that's a shout out. Good old Jim Sterling. All right. Well, I think I have an idea. I'm like a pretty confident.
Yeah, I
Elmer?
feel like I'm also going to be lowballing this one.
I'm gonna go 555.
Oh dear.
Look
I'm
at this
gonna
game.
go-
There's no way this game is long.
Yeah, I'm going 6, 7, 8. In fact, 6, 7, 7. 6, 6, 6. I'm talking myself down. I don't know what's going on.
666 down to the booth. What do you think, Paula?
Here.
555 for
I think
Paula.
I'm gonna go
Yeah.
555. Yeah.
All right, Rick.
Look at this, a week with no half hours.
Yeah, let's see. What is it?
Oh, I can fix that if you want.
No, you don't need to. I mean, do what you want. I don't really care.
I mean, I'm just gonna half an
I've already
hour to
clicked.
that
Sorry,
third
too
time.
late. Oh,
Okay.
we're all spot on. So it's 2 hours, 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right.
Yep.
Well, there we
My
go.
mistakes are never.
Which means the score is 58 for Rick, 53 for Alex, and 50 for Paula. So we're at the exact same place once again for the Charnel House trilogy. Oh, geez. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the How Long to Beat podcast. Can't wait to see you all next week, which for us, we'll be recording very soon again. But
Yeah. We also won't really be seeing you. That's the conceit of the format.
that is so true. Toodaloos.
And you won't be seeing us. More
Details.
statistic. Hear us next week. I have a bone to pick with you, Paula. You said you had thoughts on 13 Sentinels. Were you stringing
was
Sleepy Me along? Was that just a lie?
We're trying to get you to come on.
Oh, is that how little you thought of me? You thought I was avoiding it, and I hear 13 Sentinels. Like,
We didn't think you were avoiding it, but we just thought that 13 Sentinels would just like subconsciously awaken you.
Yeah.
You just go
pretty
like,
much. It was like,
they're insulting my
someone somewhere in the world
waifu.
typed it out, and I just like,
Yes.
yeah. Alex was like,
Oh, I'm gonna
tell
stop
Rick
now,
you
though.
think 30 Sentinels is shit or something like that, and he will come here, hopefully.
I was the coward.
truly
I made her do it.
disappointed.